Ah, Loki. The show that scraped together what was left of the Marvel fandom and rallied them together in this incredibly written show. The show that amazed, excited, and absolutely ripped my heart right out. I know I said I'd talk about Warrior Cats next, but with my mind fresh off this and the need to ramble about it, I decided to make a video out of it. I'm going to talk about 5 things: quality, characters, story, comparison to season 1, and final thoughts. Hopefully I don't ramble too much. So in terms of quality, it's fantastic. The acting was absolutely incredible, Tom Hiddleston in particular. Not that the others did poorly, it's just his performance stuck out the most to me. Then there's the visual effects. The CGI in the first episode worried me a little bit because the scene where Loki's flying through the TVA in the mail truck, the CGI just didn't look that great at first, but then that quickly went away with the rest of the episodes and the CGI got much better. The sets were also amazing. They would go from a small, messy room to a massive TVA basement. That's one of the things I love about the show because the set design team really took their time with the sets. And it's so good because I feel like most other Marvel projects rely too much on CGI backgrounds, so it was really nice to see real sets again. Then there's the dialogue writing. It was pretty good, although I have a few problems with some of the writing, but I'll get to that later. Comedy was pretty great, except for a few times where it did fall flat a little bit, but other than that, it was wonderful. I think I laughed the most at the opening scene of episode 6. That was such a hilarious scene, and this was probably my favorite part.
After what's happened in my this minute, I know right now you're hurt and you're angry, but we need your help in finishing the throughput multiplier faster.
The music composition was so wonderful. I did notice that there were a few repeat soundtracks from season 1, but I mean, that's understandable. I mean, you can't not use some of them. They're just so good. I loved the way that Natalie Holt would play around with different sounds for different times that they were in on the timeline. Like, I loved the intro song from episode 4 so much. Like, listen to that. It's wonderful. The music also made me so emotional, which was on purpose, of course. I mean, you're supposed to cry, right? When this scene played this song, I broke, and if you ever play the Glorious Purpose theme and Goodbye theme in front of me, I will weep. Now the characters. I'm gonna save Loki for last for a few obvious reasons, so I'll start with Mobius. He was pretty much the same as he was in season 1, which I appreciated. Owen and Tom have had great chemistry in both seasons, and I loved their good brotherly friendship so much. Right up there with all the other great friendships in the MCU. It was really refreshing and was a highlight for me in both seasons. You know what else I'm glad of? That they gave him his jet ski. It was like all he could talk about as his timeline self, and it was hilarious. I also thought it was great that he has a food obsession, from salad to key lime pie to apple pie and then plain McDonald's food. By the way, the pie in that scene looked so good, I so badly wanted a slice too. I've actually never had key lime pie. I'll have to try it sometime. Then B-15. She was different, but a good different. She was more emotionally understanding with the different characters, which was a stark contrast to last season when she was more hardcore and stoic. I also love that she was a kind and funny doctor in the timeline, so that was nice. I don't feel like talking about Casey and Ravonna too much, so I'll be brief. So when did Casey become a tech whiz? That was a little out of nowhere, but you don't have to get hung up on it too much. I love that he was such a fanboy of OB and that he was the real-life prisoner Fred Morris. Kinda like when they made Loki DB Cooper, it's just such an attention to detail. Then Ravonna. Oh, I love to hate her. She's such a little worm who gets on my nerves and was much darker this season. I will say, I like a villain who you love to hate, so thank you, writers. In fact, I cheered out loud when she got pruned. Also, did she die in the void? It's not really confirmed, but implied that Alioth got her in the end, so... oh well. Then Miss Minutes. Whew. Yikes, was she so stinking scary and evil. I automatically got very uncomfortable anytime she was on screen. I also did not expect her to be in love with Victor, or rather, He Who Remains, and that whole scene really made me uncomfortable. I don't even have words for the Hunter execution, now deemed by some as the most brutal death in the MCU, which I would agree with. Like, did you see her face? If that ain't a twisted villain, I don't know what is. A short word to Dox and Brad. They kind of had a mother-son relationship, which, by the way, look at B-15's face. Brad letting Dox die made her death even worse and made me realize what a scummy fellow he is. He did have some really funny lines and scenes though, so that helps a bit.
Earlier, I said some really hurtful things, and I brought up your mother. Sorry about that. Mobius!
We never ended up seeing though what happens to him. I guess he just escaped and went back to the timeline. Because, I mean, what else is he gonna do? It's a shame Dox ended up dying, though. She seemed to really understand what she did in the end, and I felt sorry for her. But, I mean, way to go, though, to stand up to Ravonna like that. Good job, Dox. You did it. OB is the most wholesome guy in the MCU, and he must be protected at all costs. People have theorized he turned out to be a villain in the season, but I never doubted him for a second. Just look at him! How could you think so of this lovable guy? His scenes with everyone and meeting Victor Timely was pure gold, and their reactions had me laughing hard. Can I also just point out he had a Dr. Marvin moment with his science fiction book?
Bob, there is a groundbreaking new book that has just come out.
So good. Before I talk about the last characters, I feel like I'm forgetting someone. Oh yeah, Victor. Another wholesome character. I got chills though when he came on screen for the first time because I wasn't sure if he'd be a villain or not, but we soon found out he's just an awkward scientist who's actually a really nice guy. I felt so bad for him in episode 3 because the poor guy is just getting swarmed by people, then he's being told some of those people are from different universes, whatever that means, and then that they need him because he's an important variant. He gets attacked by one of them who's literally trying to kill him. Then a crazy clock hits on him, then he's pleading for his life again, sees the TVA and his role model, OB. Then he keeps getting dragged around, volunteers to go out into the impending doom that he just found out existed to save the timelines, and it ends with the poor man being turned into spaghetti. I call for justice for this poor man. He didn't deserve getting turned into pasta. Luckily, he does survive. The Bible verse of the day is John 15:13. There is no greater love than to lay down one's life for one's friends. In light of burden bearing and giving up your life for your friends, and that reminds me of what Jesus did for us by sacrificing his life for everyone. And I often think to myself, would I be willing to do that for someone I loved? I don't know if I could, honestly. I mean, thinking about what he went through, and maybe not just that kind of a death, but any death, truly shows how much he loves us and how much he's willing to go through to save us. Just makes me so grateful for what Jesus did for me. I can never thank him enough and never repay him. Okay, then there's Sylvie. Ugh, the little weasel. I will say she grew on me in season 1, even though I didn't always appreciate her rude, kind of know-it-all attitude, but she did have her good moments. Her relationship with Loki is probably the main reason why she grew on me, because they had such a sweet relationship. Most of their scenes in season 1 had me going, aww. And that's what made pushing Loki away in episode 6 even harder. But I was like, oh, well, surely they will mend it in season 2, right? Right? Yeah, they didn't. Which I did not like, because it was so good before, and I wish the writers didn't abandon it. I mean, sure, they did have some moments in season 2, but there was, like, practically nothing. We watched poor Loki try to reason with her, following her around like a lost puppy, trying to be kind to her, and pretty much every time she's all snippy and rude, like everything she did was great. And she never even apologized for any of it. I was waiting for her to be like, I'm sorry for pushing you away, or something like that, but it never came. She kept bouncing from closure with him right back down to, I was right, leave me alone, and go fix things yourself. Like, even though she was kinda right during the bar scene, I was mad she made Loki cry, then just left him! Can't you see the poor guy needs a hug? And is still head over heels for you? That he couldn't even bring himself to kill you to save everyone? Like, poor Loki!
You'll be okay. Well, Molly and I have been growing apart for years. It's just, I can't believe she would throw me away.
Welcome to the club, Toots.
Okay, pause. I'm glad she got him to admit what he truly wants. He needed to say that, so good job, Sylvie. And also, you were kind of right in that scene, but gee willikers, you're a meanie. She did seem very concerned and scared when she realized what Loki was about to do. But in the end, she still seemed a bit lukewarm about his sacrifice. But then again, maybe that scene was long after and she's just trying to be positive about it. I don't know. All I know is I didn't like how she was written this season, and I wish it was done differently, especially since this is the end. At least for a while. Okay. Now that I got that out of my system, it's time to talk about Loki.
Why, Marvel, why?
Okay, before I get to the elephant in the room, let me talk about his growth and overall character. From an evil villain hungry for power and recognition to a humble, extremely powerful hero. I like the glimpses of his villainous self in Season 2, then the flip side of seeing his heroic self. I mean, wow, look how far we've come to say he's heroic. I'd also argue he's now the most traumatized character in the MCU. Think about it. He's lost his whole universe, so his mother, father, brother, friends. He's gone through countless confusing and extremely dangerously consequential situations. Then he went through centuries of trying different scenarios to fix the Loom and kept torturing himself again and again in the Citadel, wrestled with the right choice and had 2 gut-wrenching final conversations with his friends, and then made the ultimate sacrifice, which was much bigger of a sacrifice than Tony Stark's sacrifice. And before you shoot me with death threats, all you Tony Stark fans, Tony got to have a much better life and final moments of peace before his end. Like, he had 5 years of peace with his family. Loki did not, and he had much more mental strain than Tony did. And then he decides to give up his happiness with his new family so that they can live their lives as he saves the multiverse, keeping it together for all time, always. I hate it. Ugh. Don't get me wrong, his sacrifice is awesome, and it's awesome that he did that in a really cool way too. Like, VFX department, you did wonders in that scene. It was so stunning to watch, and I was so excited to see him do that. But I can't help but feel so sad and angry because now his fate is to forever sit holding the timelines alone. That was his greatest fear, and he did face it, so good job, Loki. But he's alone! Am I the only one absolutely wrecked by this? Why did I have to get so emotionally invested in this show and in Loki? Why couldn't I just go back to Cap? He got a happy ending. Here's a quote from someone also reviewing the ending that I totally agree with. "Thank you, Tom Hiddleston, for my sternum being on fire for hours. I even could feel it in my sleep. I especially relate to that last line to a T." Anytime I think of the other characters getting their happy lives or other universes in Marvel, I think, poor Loki's alone by himself. So yeah, it's very bittersweet, and I hate that it is, because it's like over, at least for a long time. It would have eased the wound if Loki was shown being able to go and visit them in their timelines and talk to them or something. I've also thought that maybe people could go to him since the timeline's stable and the fact that he's in there means it might be safe to go into. Maybe since Sylvie's like him, she can go visit him and bring him, like, I don't know, a Big Mac or something. Maybe in the future of the MCU, we'll see he's created his own little reality inside the timelines that people can portal to. That would be nice. We just gotta hope that we'll see him in the not-so-distant future. I have heard rumors that he might be in Secret Wars, so I don't know. There's something there, maybe. That would be amazing. I do know Tom Hiddleston said that this is a conclusion to his story since the beginning when he first started, but I also highly doubt he's done with Loki for good. Like, I've heard teases by producers saying Loki and Thor will reunite, so hey, maybe he will come back sooner than we think. He would be totally overpowered though, since he's now a scientist, he can stop time, and a master magician. I do know MCU actors and directors have been known to lie about what's in the cards for the future movies though, so there's that to consider too. So I kind of just covered story in talking about Loki, so I won't say any more about that, but let me compare Season 2 to Season 1 real quick. They both had fantastic writing. I did feel that Season 1 did a bit better in scene pacing and conversations than Season 2 did, but it's not, like, horrible or anything. I just think they did a little bit better. But overall, great writing in Season 2. I also really missed the Office's paper and all the archives from the TVA in Season 1. I just wanted them to go sit in an office and look at paper because the paper in Season 1 with the sound effects and office feel they gave off was so lovely. I don't know, maybe I'm just obsessed with paper. I am an artist after all. Both seasons had great sets and characters. I will say I like the lighting and camera movement in Season 1 better. Some of the lighting and camera shots in Season 2 felt kinda cheap, and I just wanted them to hold the camera still for Pete's sake. Thankfully it didn't move all the time, but it was jiggling a lot. Like, did you all notice that? I think I like Season 2's action sequences and just pure Loki epicness better than Season 1 though. I think they did an excellent job of making it feel intense, and it made it so enjoyable to watch. I feel though that Season 1 will always hold the prize for me, because it's what really made me love Loki. Also, its final didn't kill me near as much as Season 2 did. Season 2 delivered most of what I had hoped for, and I'm so glad in that regard. And it probably would have even taken the cake if they wrote Sylvie a little better and didn't leave Loki alone in the end. At least that's how I feel. I know a lot of people are really happy with the final, and I'm happy for them. Sadly, I ain't one of them. So I suppose I said my final thoughts just now, but I'll say everything again in short. I love Loki, he'll always be my favorite MCU character. Season 2 was overall great, could have been better in my opinion, but it was still wonderful. Pi is life, protect OB with your life. Marvel, please receive my riot notice with grace and understanding. And finally, don't trust AI, aka Miss Minutes. Okay, so I promise now that Warrior Cats will be next. Like I said, I really wanted to make a video about this, so I wanted to get it off my chest. I'm going to eventually release a big Loki edit and maybe another Loki short, so be on the lookout for that. I'd love to know what you thought about Season 2, so please leave your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to chat about it. Also, if you enjoyed this review, let me know if you want me to review something else popular or not so popular. Thanks for watching. See ya! Man, that's good stuff.